Welcome back, everybody. I got a comment on one of my recent videos about the use of CNC while calling myself a woodworker. So today I'm going to answer the question if using a CNC is actually woodworking and what my reasons were for adding it to my arsenal. If this doesn't interest you, I invite you to watch this video here where I make the best budget Adirondack chairs. Otherwise, let's get straight into it. So what exactly is woodworking? No, it's not actually the act of pleasing your man. That's not woodworking, it's working the wood. Now, the definition of woodworking is the act, process, or occupation of working wood into a useful or desired form. When most of us think of that, we think of the older days where people handcrafted items using only the most basic hand tools. This practice actually dates back several thousand years. At that time, the extent of the tools available to them were pole saws, bow drills, axes, and chisels, to name a few. Today, when we picture traditional woodworking, they are using tools such as hand planes, chisels, and basic saws, which brings me to my first point. While it is impossible to say when exactly woodworking began, the woodworkers were bound to whatever tools were available to them at that time. Just the same as we don't see people today using bow drills, we wouldn't have seen them using table saws. Moving on, here we have a CNC. CNCs come in many forms, but this one here is made specifically for cutting wood and will not design for it, even capable of cutting aluminum and other soft metals. Up until the last several years, it's been very uncommon to see any small shops with the CNC, as they were built for industrial use and had a price tag to match that was out of the reach for most smaller workshops. Now, there's a common misconception about CNC machining that all you have to do is plug in a program and it does all the work for you, so it takes no skill. This couldn't be further from the truth. Most things you cut at the CNC must be designed and programmed at a computer, which takes quite a long time to master. And before you comment and say anybody can learn to do that, that's false. I have had to help someone before that couldn't figure out how to scroll down in an Excel file.
You cannot be serious.
After you program everything, you have to know how to properly set coordinates and work positions, as well as manage bits and spindles or routers properly to get it to perform the task properly. This brings me to my second point. While you can cut most anything you can imagine, most things still require other skills for material prep or assembly. Now that we know what the definition and traditional tools of woodworking are, as well as what a CNC is capable of, I want to explain why I chose to add one to my workshop. In the recent years, they've made great strides in the build and pricing of CNCs. It's really opened up the market for smaller shops like mine to get into. I picked mine up just over a year ago from Onefinity CNC. My business was built around general woodworking and additionally sign making, thus the name Brown's Woodworking and Signs. That said, my main goal from the CNC was to be able to make more intricate signs that would have otherwise been outside of my skill level to complete. It has also been helpful in creating repeatable pieces that are needed for projects I build every year, such as Adirondack chairs. This brings me to my third point. Just like Betty Crocker Hamburger Helper is not a replacement for hamburger, CNCs are not a replacement for several tools, but another helper in the shop to add a bit of flavor to your project. It wouldn't make sense to cut a 2 foot by 2 foot square at the CNC when by the time you program it up, you could have cut it already at the table saw, not to mention the extra waste. When doing any project, it's always about using the right tool for the job, and in many cases, the CNC is not the right tool. Now, to answer the question, is CNC machining actually woodworking? Me owning one aside, the answer is yes, and here's my reasoning. Going all the way back to the definition of woodworking, the CNC is a tool that I program and use to, quote, work wood into a useful or desired form. I'll also make the observation that woodworking has not ever been bound by a certain set of tools, but by the process of making things from the wood, as evidenced by many changes to the woodworking tools available over the decades. I believe that if the tools we have today were available back whenever you believe woodworking began, those woodworkers would have been using most of the more advanced tools, and there would be no question whether or not using the tool constituted woodworking, and that's a hill I'm willing to die on.
Your generation really picks random hills to die on.
That wraps it up for today. Hopefully I was able to give you some peace of mind if you have ever been told that you're not a woodworker because you happen to utilize a CNC. Furthermore, don't take anything anyone says personally. Who cares what they think? Make whatever you want with whatever tools you feel like, and to keep it PG-13, the haters can buzz off. Thanks for staying to the end. Hope you enjoyed. Now it's time for the bloopers. I'll CNC my way out. And while not designed for it, is even capable of cutting soft, using only the most basic hand tools. And before you comment and say anyone can learn to do that, that's false. I've had somebody helped. Now that we know what the definition of traditional tools, I picked mine up just over a year from one that I would have otherwise been outside of my skill level. Just like Betty Crocker, hamburger helper.